And welcome everybody to the California Department of Education Digital Citizenship Week lunchtime webinar. I am Christina Mattis, and with me today is Catherine Goyette and Hilva Chan. Kat is joining us from CDE, the Information Technology Branch. I'll give her a moment to introduce herself. And Hilva Chan, who is joining us from the Whole Child Division. And we are here to dive into the idea of digital citizenship and what it means to maintain a healthy balance and wellness, and really diving into the idea of mental health in the digital age that we all function. And so, Kat, can you kick us off with a brief introduction?
Certainly. Thank you. My name's Catherine Goyette, and people call me Kat, as you noticed. I am the computer science coordinator for CDE, but I have done a lot of ed tech things as well, and I'm really excited about having this discussion and hearing all the resources that Hilva is going to talk about, because our mental health is absolutely impacted by the digital world. So excited to be here. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Hilva. And glad everyone is here listening.
Great. Thanks, Kat. Hilva, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and share the projects and the great work that you're doing around mental health for our students in California. Can you take a moment to introduce yourself, please?
Of course. Hi everyone. I'm Hilva Chan. I'm an education programs consultant with the CDE. I worked in the Whole Child Division, and I've been working on projects supporting student mental wellness. I would say for probably like almost 10 years. So thanks for having me here. It's really important to continue talking about mental wellness and mental health.
Yes, exactly. And so can you share with us, what do you see are the current trends happening right now in mental health?
Right. I think it is not a surprise to all of us that the pandemic has really kind of like screwed all of us off, right? So you keep seeing studies saying that since the pandemic happening in 2020, student mental wellness has been really worsened, right? It's increasing number of reporting of anxiety and depression reported by students. And then even school staff, they're so overwhelmed trying to take care of their own mental wellness and to support the students. And then even with all of us, right? Like this whole pandemic changed a lot of ways we deal with folks and families and work, and all these create like a lot of emotional distress, right? So, but if that's one thing good about the pandemic, I would say that it really normalized conversation of mental health, right? Because it's for the longest time, mental health is being like seen as being a stigma. We don't talk about it. There's all this stereotypes and labeling. People would say, oh wow, is something crazy or something just not good. You should try and stay away from mental health. And then, but with the pandemic, there's more acceptance, there's more understanding. Is that it's okay to be not okay. It's okay to be like anxious or depressed, right? All we do is that we acknowledge it and address it. And there's all these different ways and resources to really help us address our mental wellness.
And what I appreciate you saying right now, right, it's that in the wake of the pandemic, we have found ourselves normalizing the aspects of mental health, areas that had otherwise been kept quiet. Do you see that the use of the technology has positive and negative implications? I mean, can we use technology positively in all of this? And also, what do you see some of those negative effects of technology when it comes to
Absolutely.
mental health?
Right. I think absolutely. I think you asked a really great questions about all the pros and cons with technology, right?
Mm.
We know that a lot of us are still working remotely. And technologies allow us to do that, right? We can connect with our friends and families and high school friends that we haven't seen for many years through like, social media. We're able to like, live stream and FaceTime with families across the ocean, right? So all these are really good things that we can do to really with technology. On the other hand, sometimes too much screen time has affect our sleep pattern, right? You probably
Mm,
have heard stories about like students or youth or even adults playing video games all night long, and they really affect their sleep. So they really probably couldn't go to school on time, or they just feel so tired. We've also heard of stories in which like maybe some of us do the same thing, right? We post something on social media, and we keep on checking to see, hey, who has responded, who has seen our post, who has actually give us a like, right? Sometimes that creates some pressure about like the way we see ourselves, right? For example, I have, well, actually in my family too, before we eat, when we go places, the camera also always eat first. The camera always take pictures about all the food, right? Have you seen that? I
yeah.
mean, my kids do that all the time. So before we eat, they say, stop, let me take some pictures, and I just post it on social media, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes with people posting, food pictures, places they go, all the fun things they do, may create some impression that they're only sharing the good stuff in their life. And then if I keep on seeing my friends posting things about all the great things happening, right? Food, traveling, great time, parties, friends, invitations, and I may not have a lot of that, they may create pressure on me, right? That the whole like FOMO, right? Fear of leaving behind, that, oh, how come I didn't get invited? How come I didn't get to eat those things? Oh, I want that too, right? And sometimes this create pressures among like family members, or among friends, or among students, or even like when the students that they're young, like young people, they may not think, they may think that this is all people show, it's all their happy life, not realizing that there are some other aspects of life that we all have our challenges that's not being shown on social media. So I think just balancing the pros and cons, have a right perspective is really important.
Absolutely. I mean, I think about, every morning I wake up, well, maybe not every morning, but I try in the mornings to use my Calm app. I know that there are other apps out there, but I will turn that on. I go through a guided meditation for 10-15 minutes to start my day, and it's just part of this routine. So I'm using technology in a positive way, I think, right? Because I'm not looking at the screen, I'm listening to it. But then I'll find myself wanting to just aimlessly scroll through social media to see what everybody is up to, just so that I have this sense of connection with people, right? So
Absolutely.
I totally see both of that. And I'm also so curious as to then, right, it's that screen time. And how do you balance what is necessary, I think, screen time, right, for that remote work or for meaningful instruction and learning, as compared to that screen time that you're just, what is it called right now? The doom scrolling, where it's just aimless, right?
Yes.
So I'm so curious as to what that is doing to our ability to, adults and our children, our ability to regulate time.
I think you brought up some really good points about how do we really balance, right? I think setting limits as a family is important, especially when your children are still young, right? I mean, they're minors. I mean, they use when your family still have a lot of say about how you structure like meal time, screen time, right? So I think having a family discussions about media plan, right? What platforms, what gadgets can they use, and how much time to really negotiate that. So I think it's really important for families to understand that, like for a lot of young people, this is their world. This is all about it, right? They connect with friends through media, through social media. But that's at some point there got to be some limit on what to do and what not to do, and how much time you spend. So I think
Exactly.
bring the families together to really talk about it is really important. On the other hand, too, I think it's also important for adults, for us to really set good example. So I have to admit that like sometimes I am the one like keep on scrolling, and you just mentioned about like scrolling aimlessly. Or sometimes all these apps, they have this algorithm, they just push stuff to you, right? So if I'm like looking at like a YouTube video on exercising, suddenly I get a lot of recommendations on all these similar exercise, the videos, right? So understanding that the social media wants to spend as much time there as possible, how they actually push out recommendations to us is probably the first step to realize that, hey, you know what, if I don't stop, they won't, because they want me to really spend as much time there so that I become the commodity for them to sell ads to me, right? Use all these ads, right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
discussing this to make sure that is people becomes aware of it, that we need to set boundary and then set like a limit on how much time, and then think about like, well, if I spend 3 hours on social media today, that's 3 hours less for something else, probably more fun and more meaningful, right? So really think about, well, what can we do in lieu of? We recognize the importance of spending time on social media. We also realize that everything fun, when they're too much, is probably not good. Like ice cream, right? Like chips, like what I really like chips, I can't stop. So I think have that mindset that it's not just social media, but anything we need to have them in moderation, right? I think that's really important to discuss and to talk about as a family.
Absolutely. And that gets me thinking about, sometimes I'll hear people say, oh, I'm bored, right? But there's been some really good research out there that indicates being bored is actually a good thing, because if you give yourself that time to just sit in your sense of boredom, you actually can spark some really great creative outcomes out of that. You start thinking and generating some ideas that you can then do to help overcome that boredom. So it's okay to give yourself that time and space away to be a little bit bored, right? Away from that technology. I also think, to your point of, that need for uh, posting on social media, like the food pictures, right? We all love food, but it gives that false sense that everything is so good. So your friends might have that incorrect impression. But then I also think about um, the validation, like everybody, oh, click the likes, right? And how many likes do I get? And we've seen documentaries where children are so impressionable, and they just feel as though if they don't get a certain amount of likes on their post, that either they're not popular, people don't like them, they remove the post. I mean, it has so many negative implications then. And so how can we help all of us at any age realize that a simple like doesn't necessarily mean that it's a meaningful, engaging interaction. It's a superficial validation. And it's
I
having these
think
conversations that are meaningful.
exactly. You brought up some great points about like sometimes it's a lot of like misunderstandings
Yeah.
and not understanding how social media works, right? So I think really have, meaningful conversations as a family about, hey, you know what? Explain how things work, the rationale about all the algorithm, all trying to keep us there as much as possible. The recognition that, you know what, we all want likes, we all want to be recognized, but that may have some like harmful effects, right? So I
Mhm.
think it's not just to say, oh, this is bad, don't do it, or cut down your screen time. It's like, really just talk about it, recognizing there are definitely some pros, there's definitely good things that, the tech give to us, but it's also some unintended consequences that we all have to realize. I have to admit that sometimes it's quite addictive, right? Because we all realize that, as parents, as adults, we know it is really addictive. So how do we help our families, help our students realize that and really set boundary, to set limit is really deserve a lot of conversations.
So, Hilva, what types of projects are you working on and supporting at the whole child division here at CDE? What efforts are you taking within the mental health realm?
Yes, so I'm responsible for several mental health projects, including one called Project Cowell. This is a 5-year grant we got from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration since 2014. So we're very, very fortunate to receive 3 cohorts of 5-year grants from SAMHSA, which allow us to work with districts and schools statewide to really learn and pilot test things in different counties, and then really disseminate what we've learned to other districts and schools statewide. So within that project, basically we use a 3-component model, trying to really support districts and schools in addressing school climate. We think having a positive school climate is really the most important step in supporting student mental health. Then we also work with them in increasing access to school-based mental health services. And then thirdly, trying to build community collaborations to work with local nonprofit agencies to expand access to community-based services. We have all these great resources we post on the Project Cowell website, including briefs and different resources that we created and also created by our partners. So it's actually great to check on our Project Cowell website to check out all these resources.
Perfect. And for those watching and listening, the resources will be posted after the webinar has concluded on our website with the Digital Citizenship website. So stay tuned for that. Hilva, you said school climate is really important. What would you say is one of the more pertinent pieces when trying to create that positive school climate?
I think it's the mindset that it really takes time to build relationships, right? Honestly, the term school climate could mean different things to different people because it's really broad. There's so many different constructs within the school climate. We actually work with West Ed in supporting a center called the California Center for School Climate, which we provide free technical assistance and trainings to support districts and schools and school staff in a wide variety of school climate work, which includes trying to build connections, right? Build relationships among all your stakeholders, right? All your education partners, trying to address school safety, trying to promote equity within the whole school, and on many other things as well. So check out the California Center for School Climate website. I don't think I give you that link, so I'm happy to really send you the link after this. You can post it on the YouTube as well.
Oh, perfect. That would be wonderful. And the other 2 areas that you said that promote positive well-being, can you remind us of those other 2?
So yes, so for the Project Cowell model, we also focus to work with districts on increasing access to school-based mental health services and build community collaborations. We also have some resources on the Project Cowell website. One thing I do want to really point out that you talked about, right, in the morning, you check out Calm, the Calm app, trying to really help ourselves regulate. I want to really call out a new resource we actually put out. It's called Virtual Be Well Space. I actually provide you with a link on that. It's actually a site where we built with West Ed to try to help folks calm themselves, right? Or trying to activate themselves. It's all about emotion regulations, because we know that there are times where we're really stressed out, we need to be calm. There's times where we're just so bored, we need to be activated, right? So that's a site where you can please check out and see if you can there are things you can do, things you can listen to, things you can play, and just to try different ways, trying to regulate ourselves so that we can be in the calm state. We can deal with all these stresses in our life.
Yes,
so check that
I know.
out.
And I think that leads into that third area that you were talking about with our community partners, right? And we come together, and I was just thinking right now, if only my children were awake at 5 a.m. with me, then maybe we could do a community meditation, right? Or something. But then it's thinking, what could we do, say, in the evenings together when we're starting to calm down before bedtime, or, take those few minutes of anything that you can do, and so that we can all practice being calm and that emotional regulation.
Yes. Now, we recently put out a family guide to supporting young people's mental health and well-being. So this is a guide we're trying to help families to really have some conversations with the students, with the young people on promoting mental health. I'm trying to help families supporting the students if they're in, LGBTQ, right? The different topics, and trying to support families to have conversations on social media, because all these are really important topics that families sometimes find themselves like, may not agree on regarding screen time, regarding on a lot of things. So check out a family guide to supporting young people's mental health. I also sent you a link on that. And we are working on a Spanish version right now that should be available in spring. So all this will be posted on the Project Cowell website in the future.
That's perfect. Yes, we'll be posting all of these resources so that we can continue raising awareness and educate everybody that the Department of Education is just a wealth of information and resources available to our families and our students. I want to go back to something that you said about when building that school climate and building the relationships, there's this a level of trust that needs to get established. And we know that establishing trust to build those relationships, to have that positive school climate and the community partnerships and everything else that's intertwined takes time, and it happens at different times, right? What are ways that people can build trust among themselves to feel that they are in that safe space and place to have those relationships so that they can be honest and transparent about their emotions and their thoughts and their feelings?
You asked a great question. I think the number one fundamental mindset is that school climate is not something to check off, right? It's not a list. I think it has to be a shared mission among different partners, right? Admins, staff, families, and students. If there's a shared common goal, we want this place to be safe and supportive and respectful and engaging, that we all work towards this common goal. That's probably step number one, right? And I think that having trainings like trauma-informed practices, right? Cultural competency trainings, right? So we try to uncover all these assumptions that people may have sometimes on other folks, having some common understanding that we all humans, we all similar needs, right? And not having assumptions before is important. So having honest, open conversations and to really try to commit to be having a positive climate where folks feel safe and supportive is really important. Now, having, for example, if school is having on-site mental health services and, really train their staff and trauma-informed practices, I think it's a really good start, right? So, I think the outside has been moving away from suspension and trying to do more like practices like MTSS, like multi-tier systems of support, or like social emotional learning. All those practices and is a change in mindset that we don't see our students as someone just break the school laws, the school rules, right? We see our students as probably some of the responses are just trauma responses, right? And we really need to really help staff understand where the students and families are coming from and trying to find ways to work with them. I think that's probably really important as the beginning to really create a more respectful and supportive school climate.
That is so poignant in that we have to be mindful that we don't know what is happening outside of the classroom or the school for the student. They could be walking in to the school doors hungry, tired, there could have been some kind of life trauma experience just a few minutes before school started, right? And so a student's behavior is them, to your point, a trauma response. And so we as adults, rather than being reactionary, we need to be understanding and compassionate and show some grace and really understand what is happening with the student.
I like what you says about being compassionate and really show grace.
Mm-hmm.
I think is, sometimes we're too busy. We are in this very work task oriented mindset, right? We need to get this done, get this done. Then sometimes we probably will rush to conclusions, even within our family, right? If you're
Right.
short on time, when you're rushed, you won't just get it done, right? So I think that's why it's all about balance, right? We all need to take a step back to try to see if we can cut down on things we have to do, honestly,
Yep.
set boundaries and do less things and have some quiet time so we can be more regulated. It really helps us dealing with our families and dealing with our friends and colleagues, right? And, school is such a hectic place. School staff are doing the best they can sometimes. So I think, when we're trying to put in more interventions from a school and district perspective, maybe they need to look at things that needed to drop before keep on adding things to the school. Sometimes
Yes.
what I see is that there's all these, they're implementing so many things that people find, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming, right? But maybe we need to take a pause and say, you know what, we're currently implementing X number of interventions. Do all these work, or should some simply be dropped before adding on new things? To relook at them and then go from there, because sometimes we all want to get things done, we all want to improve the outcomes, the student outcomes, all these metrics, right? But just by keep on adding things to it, probably you can only go so far, because people are so overwhelmed. And while there's all these discussions about self-care, um, I think it's really important to move from an institution perspective to look at self-care. It's not just that individual staff care for themselves in their own ways. Is that collectively as an organization, how do we look at self-care? How do we make time for staff so that they can really have some self-care time? Or even think about how the whole school or district or organization can really build in this mindset, right? That we should all be balanced and calm and care for each other and self.
I completely agree in that there is so much happening, and thinking about, rather than constantly adding something new, let's try this, let's take a look at what we already have, let's study it, let's look at those metrics, what's working, what's not, and let's start removing things off of our plates before we add more on, and setting those boundaries. And I'll admit, I am learning how to set better boundaries and really look at what is my realistic capacity to take on,
Mm.
and what is the realistic capacity for my children to take on. Because when there is too much, you know, I don't do well with schedules. We
Yeah,
have to
and we
get
can
somewhere
only
on time. Let's go.
yeah,
Well,
and we can only
no.
multitask for so far, right? We
Yep.
honestly we couldn't really multitask. We're actually doing one thing and drop the other and pick one up again, right?
Right, right. Exactly, exactly. Hilva, you have shared so many wonderful insights about how we can do better with our wellness and mental health and our care for ourselves and for each other and for our students. Where can, obviously, I will be sharing out all the great resources that you have passed along to me. And should somebody want to reach out either to you or to your department, is there a particular direct website or an email address that people could reach out?
Yes. So a lot of the mental health resources are actually post on the CDE Project Cowell site.
Wonderful.
Always check that out, that site. We also have a list of where we actually push our resources on different school climate, on mental health resources. The information is actually on the last tab on the Project Cowell website. If you can't find it, Christina, let me know. And people can always reach me through my email address on the CD. So I believe my email address is actually on the Project Cowell, but I'm not 100% sure.
That's
So
okay.
if
We'll
you
get
can't find
everything
it,
out
let me
there.
know. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Well, thanks for
Wonderful.
having me. I really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Thank you, Hilda, and thank you to everybody who was able to join in today and listen in on the future recordings. Thanks again, everybody. And thank you, Hilda, for taking time to share your insights and resources with all of us on mental health.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.